The majority of Australians struggling with mental illness are doing so in silence, rather than seeking help. People with mental illness in regional areas are most at risk due to the fear of being stigmatised by their family, friends and community in general. This stigma is brought about by inaccurate and hurtful representations of people with mental health issues as violent, comical or incompetent, and making people an object of fear or ridicule.
Before I was diagnosed, and I thought someone had a mental illness. I thought, well, they're a bit off, they're a bit strange, there's something definitely wrong with them. And having the mental illness myself, I never thought that I was strange, but maybe other people were looking at me that way.
At the time I didn't understand it. I had no idea what was going on and what the problem was. I think I was probably like most people, especially males, told her to suck it up and get out of bed and get on with it. It wasn't until further down the track, probably 3 or 4 months, maybe 6 months later, that I actually sat down and spoke to the doctors before I could actually understand what the problem was.
I think people didn't know what to do. Only from my personal experience, the stigma that I guess I recognised was that people were quiet when they saw things and they knew things were not right. They weren't forthright in coming forward, so there was that element of embarrassment about me personally and our family and our situation, but there was also, I guess, embarrassment from family and friends and others as to how much they would ask a question,
I find some of them, a few of the people that have come here don't like to admit that they might have a problem.
I think that's one of the major things that we have to get past, is being able to trust someone and to open up without judgment. A major issue with mental health is people start seeing you in a different way, and so they don't, when they're listening to you, they're just hearing someone with a mental health issue talking. They're not seeing past that.
When stigma occurs in the media, it can be in the form of reports that refer to inaccurate stereotypes, sensationalising issues through unwarranted references to mental illness, misusing medical terminology, or using demeaning or hostile language.
I think mental health is such a taboo subject because we think of the extremes. I think we think of the extreme schizophrenia or psychosis, the real broad, the severe illnesses. We don't think about our daily mental health and everyone.
Some of it is historical, like even the language, like cuckoo, gone crazy. There seems to be a concept that mental health is a psychotic killer that's going to jump out and stab everybody. It's not the case at all. The mental health can be anything from depression through to personality disorders.
Surrounding stigma when it comes to men in particular, the biggest issue is not wanting to appear weak or not wanting to appear overly in touch with their emotions. I think that men in particular are raised as having this certain set of ideals on what type of person they should be. And if they go against that, then it means they're not that person. You can be a really strong male and a really hard, male that still seeks counselling and sees a counsellor to work through your issues.
Alarmingly, stigma can also be found among the very people that people with mental illnesses turn to for help, particularly with some inexperienced frontline medical staff in rural and regional areas.
So during my time in nursing and in healthcare, my perception certainly has changed. As a young practitioner, I worked in an intensive care environment, and my exposure to mental illness was really during that acute phase, and the exposure that I had were patients post-accidental or intentional overdose. And I must admit, as a young practitioner, I probably contributed to the negative stigma associated with those presentations, not fully understanding why that patient was there and what led to that patient presenting in that way. And it's not until that I started to care for the families as an extension to the patient that I started to learn their individual stories. And it's then that I started to change my mindset and my perception of mental illness.
Sometimes there is a lot of people out there that are not very supportive. And sometimes I'm talking about service workers who are stuck in, they can't help, or their guidelines don't allow them to step outside their boundaries to give that support sometimes. And then sometimes it's about service workers don't know how to help, and they struggle and can't support myself and my family member.
Often they think that they can't seek support because they'll be reported as being dangerous to their children, and that even though they might need support, they don't want to put their hands up because that's a huge fear that someone will put a notification in and that the children will just be taken and never returned. There's stigma in regards to seeking other services other than community services. Going to doctors, they sometimes have trouble going to doctors because the doctors might judge them. They have trouble seeing about physical illness because it can often then be put, oh, this is somatic and related to this mental illness, not the physical issue. So there's lots of little bits and pieces that you'd never think of unless you're actually living or working with people.
Enshram's had a long history around supporting its workforce. Since 1993, when Enshram first started off, it was built around a culture of people taking ownership and working together. So the establishment of health support processes for our employees has been simple and well supported, because that's the approach the guys have always had since the beginning of the business. The type of things we do, we provide education and awareness programs for our guys. We give them access to professional services, and that's extended to their immediate family members as well. We also now have in place a position in the business. It's a volunteer role by one of the guys off the floor who's in a peer support role, known as an EAP support officer. So that gives the guys an opportunity to talk to someone that they really feel comfortable about. So what we're trying to do is create those opportunities where we promote guys in particular to put their hands up and say, hey, I need to talk to someone, there's something going on. So we provide that role to assist in that initial engagement.
People will be more open with people they can associate with, who they believe they can trust, more so than the same message might be coming from the same people. But my experience and my understanding is that people are more likely to open up to people they can feel comfortable with.
I think we need to get an understanding that it is manageable and it's not a death sentence, that people can move on, move forward and live really productive, happy lives, even with the fact that they have experienced mental ill health at some point in their life.
You also need to follow it up with talking and with then continue to sort of be there and supporting them and encouraging them to participate in, come down and join us and what have you, and try and get them to feel like more comfortable within themselves. But I think the first step is definitely reaching out, talking, and then continuing to be there and be supportive.
We all have a part to play in that, And it would be very unlikely that an individual hasn't been impacted by mental health either directly or indirectly. So next time you're in community and you hear someone make an inappropriate comment about mental health, mental illness, or a person in the community with a mental health or mental illness, I challenge you to correct that comment made.
The more open discussions we have with people and the more conversations there are about mental illness, mental health challenges, mental ill health, I think the more discussion there is around it, the more attitudes may be changing.
Spoke with someone the other day just at the shops, and my friend said, oh, please excuse me, I don't want you to tell anyone that we're going to a mental health thing on the day that the races is on. Please don't tell anyone that I have a mental health issue. She turned around, she bumped me in the arm and she said, who hasn't these days? And I thought, well, good on you. I thought right there is a reason to get rid of the stigma.
If people can feel more at ease that there is someone there, or there is a contact that you can have, I think that would go a long way.
I see that healthcare practitioners are more accepting of mental illness and the management of mental illness, and what they really want is for people to access help.
There are many great services working with people with mental illness, and it's really important for people experiencing mental health challenges to recognise that the support is there, but the hard work is with them. And I never cease to be amazed at the courage and the tenacity and the creativity that people with mental illness show in their recovery journeys.
If you think you have a mental illness, find somebody who will listen to you and get the appropriate help. And if the first person doesn't want to help you, go to the next one and get a second opinion, and a third and a fourth and a fifth, and keep banging on doors until somebody will listen to you. If you want to get better, you just got to do it.
Can I just say that mental illness has changed our lives, but for the better. Like I said, we're more closer as a family. We understand each other a bit more. So it's very rewarding, very, can I say, normal.